right, welcome back to the Real Estate Brothers podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ethan Christensen.
And I'll be the other host, Bridger Christensen.
And this is a podcast where we interview local real estate entrepreneurs. And today we have a good buddy of ours on, Justin Arrington. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Happy to be here.
It's good to have you here, man. Over the past couple of years, us and Justin have gotten pretty close, developed a good friendship, have found some common ground in real estate and golf. And so that's been really great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Justin? Give a little background, how you got into real estate.
Yeah. So I grew up here in Utah my whole life, born in Ogden, raised in Far West. And yeah, like I've always loved it here. I used to like the snow, but now I absolutely hate it snowing in May.
Same.
But yeah, like as far as getting my start in real estate, like me and my wife, we bought our first house. It was a townhouse that we bought for like 120 grand back in 2017. So it was right before like the market really started to peak. And I kind of started to notice like how much equity we were building up in that house. And I was like, oh, maybe real estate would be cool to get into. And then my wife was always watching, like the flipper flop shows and whatever that show was with Chip and Joanna Gaines. I can't remember what that one was, but she was like obsessed with it. And I was like, oh man, that doesn't look like it'd be that hard. And then I looked at becoming a real estate agent. I just wasn't happy with what I was doing in corporate America. I sold tech.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I really was not great at it, but that's a lie. I was pretty good at it. Like I worked for Dropbox.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I was actually one of the number one sales reps for them. And it just, I don't know, the corporate world just wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I remember I was actually at work, like learning about how to become a real estate agent and all this stuff. And then I saw this thing pop up about wholesaling. And that's what really kind of sparked my interest back during like the prime Wholesaling Inc. Days, and like that was like the biggest coaching group that was around. And at that point, like I didn't have any money like whatsoever. Like we had just had our first kid. My wife wasn't working. Like when we had him, it was just, hey, we're going to keep you home. That way we don't have to pay for daycare. We're not only because we couldn't afford it, but it just kind of balanced off. Like if she was working, it would have been enough to pay for daycare, and that was it, right? And anyway, so I found this thing called wholesaling, started listening to podcasts, and I signed up for my first course that I ever bought. Went out and got my first credit card, and easily.
What was the course?
It was the Wholesaling Inc. course.
Oh, it was Wholesaling Inc. Okay.
Yeah, so it dropped 10 grand that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I just thought it would be this easy thing, like, hey, spend the money, you'll make it back in 90 days, pay the credit card off, just the typical course that everybody sells nowadays, And anyway, so I did that, went through the whole course. It was like 6 months later, nothing had come from it. And I was like, maybe that's just not for me, And I remember I was calling for sell by owners, and I had one in Ogden that was like, I'd let's see if we can make a deal. And at this point, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I just started reaching out to other wholesalers that I knew in the area. And I found one of them and I was like, hey, can you just come on this appointment with me? I'll split the deal with you if we get it. And that sparked a good relationship that I had amongst wholesalers here. And I actually ended up working for that guy for, it was like 6-8 months, something like that. That's like, I think it was closer to a year, but for the first 3 months, I just told him like, hey, I just want to come into your office. I'll cold call for you, whatever. And, basically just offered my services for free because I wanted to learn the game. And then eventually he brought me on as an acquisitions manager, and we ended up parting ways, but that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because I finally learned, the ins and outs of wholesaling, like how to navigate the market a little bit, and been doing that ever since. And I think we're coming up on 5 years.
Yeah. I think we all kind of got started at the same time.
Yeah.
I think.
No, that's awesome. I think that's something that's really cool when when you're starting something new, especially within real estate, and that's exactly what we did, is reaching out to people who have done it, who do it,
Yeah.
and can help you, right?
Yep.
Because I feel like a lot of people get too prideful about it, you know, and saying, I can do it myself. I don't need to buy the course. I don't need to do this, that, and the other. When in reality, I feel like that's how everybody got their start.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Like, not against any courses or anything out there, because I've sold courses of my own, you know, and I know you guys have one of your own as well. But one of the things that I don't think I really thought of was, oh man, there's actually going to be a lot of work behind just watching a bunch of videos. Like the saying, like, the more action you take, the more money you make, is 100% true. And like, since that day, I've really come to understand that a lot. But yeah, man, it's been a good 5 years. I mean, the market's kind of had its ups and downs, and you know, I talk to people all the time, like, oh, how did you manage 2008 last time? And I was like, dude, I don't know. I was in the 7th grade. Like, I don't know. Like, this is the first time for me. This is the first time for everybody. And just managing the ups and downs. I mean, I can say that there's definitely more ups than there have been downs.
For sure.
But it's been fun, and I enjoy the real estate industry. And
yeah, no, that's awesome. Today. So take us through the transition from, you know, working for a wholesaler to going on your own.
Yeah.
Where did that shift come from, and, you know, what made you take that leap?
Yeah. So it really wasn't the best. Well, it was the best time, but it was, for me, financially, probably the worst time to go out and do something on my own. Like, I don't want to say like I'm just like one of those, oh, he literally had nothing, but like that's what it was like. Like I was the guy that swiped his card at the gas station and it said declined. So like I have been there when there was no money in the account. And just before I went out on my own, we sold that first townhouse that we bought, and fortunately made a decent amount of money that allowed me to start my own deal. And it's a good thing we had that, because we lived off of that equity for like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Before I finally got a check in the mail from a wholesale deal.
Yeah.
You know, and so having that backing from, like, yes, I did work for somebody, and it was great because I was able to learn things that like I did not learn inside the course that I had bought. And yeah, like after we moved out of our townhouse, and I, you know, started working in my basement and yeah, that was how the first 6 months were. Like, it was a grind. Yeah. You know, like, the deals weren't coming easy, just because I feel like I was in that newbie, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but just kind of find a way to make it work. And back when I started, like, I just told myself, like, there's no plan B. Like, I'm not going back to work for somebody else. Like, I want to work for myself, and I'll do whatever it takes to be able to do that for the rest of my life. And so, like, for anybody that's wanting to start anything, like, just don't give yourself an out. You know, like, I feel like too many people have a plan B where they want to go out and start this thing, but, you know, I do have this thing that I can fall back on.
Burn the bridges, or burn the boats.
Burn the boats.
Sorry,
yeah, like you have to burn the boats. Like, if you want to become something, if you want to build something, I truly believe that you just have to be all in and not give yourself any sort of out.
I feel like that's a pretty big differentiating factor between, like, when I look at people who are like living the life that I want, or that we want, that we all want. Hearing part of their story is there's always something like that. Yeah. There's always this pivotal moment where they were like, no, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And we're going to give it everything we have. And there's no, like, we have to succeed. And that, yeah. Like, there's been a handful of times where I've never been serious about it, but I have, like, scrolled through Indeed for like 30 seconds. Like, looking
it'd
at
be
stuff,
so much
you know
easier.
what I mean?
Like,
I know.
It really would. It'd be easier to go somewhere and, you know, clock in at 8 o'clock and you're home by 5, and
for sure,
you know, you can do whatever with your kids or with your wife, whatever. It'd be a lot easier.
It'd be a lot easier, for sure.
A lot less stressful. You know, that check's coming in 2 weeks, no matter what. Where, yep. I mean, you go out and do something on your own. It's, you know, you could go 3 months without making any money.
100%.
Been there.
So, yeah, no, and we have been there. So like,
yeah.
Last year was brutal for everybody, and
yeah,
that was one of those, like, that was one of those pivotal moments for us where it was do or die. Like
Yeah.
we know our craft, we know what skills we have, we know that we can find deeply discounted off-market properties, and we had to prove to ourselves that we weren't just one of those people who got in at the right time.
Yeah.
Like so many people got into real estate 5 or so years ago, and it was
easy.
Oh,
Dare I
dude.
say easy, right? Like actually
A lot different.
Like so many more leads, so many more, maybe not more deals, but way
Deal
less
size-
competition.
deal sizes.
Deal size for
Yeah.
sure.
Like
And
it was the days where everybody's like, yeah, I'll pay 20,000 over market.
yeah.
No problem.
easy.
Yeah.
But now where, we transition to this down market, it's like the true investors, the true wholesalers, the true entrepreneurs will show, their true colors will show, and they will succeed.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that.
Well, how many lists are you guys on that
Oh yeah.
a year ago? I guess it was probably closer to 2 years ago. Now you were getting how many deals sent to your inbox every day? And now it's like,
In half, probably
Yeah.
now.
yeah, like there's a lot of
yeah.
people that have already jumped ship.
There's just these handful. There's like these 5, right? Like behemoths.
Oh, I know. I feel like I've always said this, that there's so many people who like the turnover in wholesaling. I'm like, it's gotta be like ratio wise. I'm like, it's gotta be close to like realtors. Cause I'm like, there's so many people who get their license as a realtor and don't do anything. And I'm like, it's the same thing with wholesaling.
Yeah.
And it's just not as easy as everybody.
Well, how many times
makes
do you
it
see the
seem.
thing where it's like, oh yeah, I've looked into getting into wholesaling. It's like, are you sure you want to?
Yeah,
Well, I don't. I see people all the time. Like I've been a part of several different groups where like I'll post something about wholesaling, and there's always like tons of comments like, oh yeah, I've been maybe looking to get into that.
Yeah.
And they try it out for 30 days or whatever, and you never hear from them again.
It's like what Jerry Norton says, this is not a side hustle. I think Jerry Norton said
Yeah,
that.
no,
This
yeah.
is
Yeah,
not a
dude.
side hustle. It's not. Like I mean, I don't get, like, I guess it can
You
be.
could treat it as one.
can for sure
but,
treat it
I mean, you're doing a deal a year at that point.
Oh yeah. And you're not truly able to scale and grow and
Yeah.
probably get to the point.
And at that point, like, you're just not like, I don't know. You have to be all in it and like really understand like what are buyers doing right now? Where are they buying at? How much are they wanting to make? Like, rehab costs 3-4 years ago. I mean, you were way cheaper than what it is now.
For sure.
Just with like inflation, like that's obviously driven up the price of rehabbing homes. And so yeah, like you have to be all in, like really know what the trends are and what people are wanting to buy. And, if you're doing that part-time, it's going to be 100 times harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every market's different. We were talking to a buyer in a different market outside of Utah, and he's like, I'm not touching anything. He's a flipper. He's like, I'm not touching anything unless I'm making 20% of ARV. And I'm like, dude, no way. You know who I'm talking about. Dude, and I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, he knew somebody here in Utah, and they had talked about some deals, and he was like, yeah. I was like, I told him, I was like, most investors here in Utah are looking for 10%, 10 to 12 of ARV.
Unless it's like $1 million home.
Exactly. Right. And even then some
Yeah.
probably are shooting for that. And I was like, yeah, so if this guy's selling a home at $400,000 in Utah, our investors are looking at, flippers are looking at making 40.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not doing it unless I'm making 80. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no way. I'm
Which
like,
I mean, if that,
I'm like, if you can do that, good for you, man. I'm in
Yeah.
the wrong market.
Yeah.
But it's knowing the nuances of your market, of other markets, markets that you want to be in.
yeah.
And you just got to put in the time. And that's, going back to that, I'm like, that's why you can't just do this as a side hustle for the most part. You can do these one-off deals, right? But you're not going to consistently do deals.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's kind of how I was for the first, 6, 7, 8 months that I was in it. It took me 4.5 months to close my first deal. And then after that, there was another dry spell for another 3 months before I closed the next one. Yep. And fortunately, that first one, I think it was like 20 grand, which back then, dude, like that was more than half of what I made ever in a year, And so I was like, man, this is awesome. And then that next one closed, it was like 15,000. I'm like, this is it. Like I know what to do. And I think that first year, I only closed 5 or 6 deals. but there were some good ones in there, you know, and I was making more money than I ever thought I would.
For sure. That's a cool difference to see, where I feel like we're all entrepreneurs, all visionaries, like we are like, we're just dreamers. Like, not to sound like cliche or weird, but it's like we dream about, like, just dream so hard about wanting this life, wanting to be able to help these people, wanting to provide our families with, you know, this and this and this and whatever it is. And then when that like kind of starts to happen, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Well,
like,
when
it's
I
really like,
first
wait a
started,
minute.
it was like, okay, how much money do I need to make to not get evicted? You know, like that's what my mentality was. But then when there was, you know, these bigger checks that were starting to roll in, it's like, okay, like
Changes things.
what's the possibility with real estate? Like really, you know, because I had been looking into it forever and I was never really committed to it. There's still days, I've told you, both of you guys this, like there's still days where I'm like, man, I could still be doing so much more. But back then, like, I don't know, it was crazy.
Yeah. One thing that I love within real estate is how nice the community is. Like, you know, you go to a meetup, there's no one there that will shame you or make you feel less or anything if you've never done a deal, if you've only done, or if you've done a few, whatever it is. Everyone there is super kind, super gracious, and typically wants to help. Because, I mean, beyond real estate just being really a relationship-based business, I don't know. I just feel like everyone in real estate just has really good intentions, and they all want those same things in life. They want to live the best life that they can.
Yeah.
They want to, you know, make a lot of money and provide well for their family. When you first got started, did you ever go to any like RIA being Real Estate Investors Association? Did you ever go to like any meetups or anything like that?
Yeah. So I still have yet to this day. I've never been to a RIA meeting ever.
The only one we've gone to is the one we spoke at.
The two we spoke at.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been to like real estate conferences and like entrepreneurship conferences and stuff like that. I've signed up, like I've signed up for a lot of different coaching, which inside there's obviously communities and, you know, live calls and stuff like that. But yeah, like I would say I am in network with a lot of the people that are in the markets that I'm in.
Did you ever? Cause there were when we first got started, there was like a few people that we knew were like in the industry, and I don't want to say we relied on them, but we definitely were like talking to them, asking them a bunch of questions, trying to get them to come to appointments with us.
See, dude,
was there anyone who was like?
I wasn't like that.
No,
like I was really kind of timid about the whole thing, where like if I had a question, I just went to YouTube and tried to just figure it out that way. And that's one thing that like I've really kind of started to be better at is asking questions. Like all growing up in high school, junior high, whatever, I was the kid that never asked questions because I didn't want to look stupid. Yeah. And it took me a long time to overcome that. And so like starting out, like there was tons of times where, you know, I wasn't even sure what was in my contract.
Yeah.
You know, but here I am going and pitching this to these sellers. And I mean, maybe that's a lie. There was maybe 2, maybe 3 people that I had met previously where I'd shoot them a text and say, hey, you know, how do I navigate this? And they'd give me some guidance for sure. But as far as like really putting myself out, like, hey, I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing, can someone help me? Like there really wasn't a ton of that. Like there was just a lot of trial and error, and I'm sure I missed out on tons of deals because I just didn't want to ask for help.
So would you have done that differently?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, yep. I feel like there's so many people who get started and kind of just don't reach out. They don't reach out to people, which I don't know. I don't know why, because I feel like with us, and, you know, obviously, you know, being timid, things like that. Like, I guess, you know, I do understand that. But I'm like, I feel like my personality has always been like, if I don't know how to do it, like, I got to talk to somebody how to do it. You know, I'm like, somebody teach me, you know?
Yeah. And it just took, I think it took me a long time to kind of break out of my shell. Like, I always used to care like what everybody thought.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't want to be that, oh, he's just some new wholesaler that's trying to move houses, you know? Yep. And like, cause you don't want to be that guy. You know?
For sure.
At least I didn't want to be, you know? And so, there was kind of that timid point that I had to overcome. And I don't know, I just kind of stopped caring what people think. And if they didn't want to buy my deals, then
yeah, for sure.
It is what it is.
I feel like that's like imposter syndrome. I feel like a lot of people, it's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
The term fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
It's true.
I feel like that was like
have
with us. Like I remember when we were first starting out, like talking to homeowners and stuff. And I'm just like, man, you know, I just feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but just reaching out to other people and trying to, you know, learn from others is how we got it done. But well, take us to where your business is now. You know, what's happening?
Yeah.
What things have changed? How have you shifted?
Yeah.
Take us through that.
So it's definitely not where I want it to be. And like, this is the first business that I've ever really built, you know, like, and it's taken me a long time to get from just doing everything myself. And I have a really hard time of handing things off. And so, I mean, there was a time 1.5, 2 years ago where, you know, I had 3-4 cold callers that were working for me full time. I had a full-time acquisitions manager that was more so my assistant than anything. And it was awesome having him around. And dude, I was paying people like the money was just going out and I didn't care. And then I was like really starting to look at my finances and I'm like, I'm not making any money. You know, like I did this totally wrong. And it sucks, but it was one of those growing pains. Like I had to go through that to get to where I am now. And not saying like I've got it all figured out by any means. But dude, like I am proud to say like there's never been a year where I haven't done multiple 6 figures, you know, like it's not many people can say that.
Sure. Absolutely.
And so, right now, I feel like I am more clear on where I want to take this business than I ever have been before. Like I want to get this to where I'm consistently doing 6 figures a month. And, you know, and I feel like that's kind of the next step for me. Because like, I don't know, right now I've got the wholesale game not tied down, but like, I understand the ins and outs of everything. Like, you know, I know roughly what I have to do to, you know, bring in a couple deals a month, and which is great, but obviously not where I want it to be. And, you know, the next step is just from getting to where I'm doing a couple deals a month to, I think it'd be sick to get to doing 12 to 15 a month.
100%.
So.
No, that's awesome. And I feel like that's kind of, you know, it starts off with these, when you're first getting into it, these one-off deals, and then you build momentum, you build consistency, you build out these systems and your team. And, you know, that's when you're able to start doing those kinds of numbers. In that scenario where you're doing 6 figures a month, what would your ideal team look like?
I would say just having an assistant that really manages my day, like scheduling calls that, you know, maybe I need to be on, or kind of managing our list of people that we're calling. So that'd be one. Couple of cold callers, whether they're in-house, I'd like to outsource them. Which I have gone through a lot of VA companies, just I haven't found one that I've been super impressed with. So yeah, having a few of those, and then, you know, an acquisitions manager, dispositions manager. Like I really don't want to build this massive team that some of these big companies have. You know, like I think pretty similar to you guys. Like if I could have, you know, 4, 5, 6 killers that just really want to be there to, you know, make as much money as they possibly can. That's what I'm about. So,
yeah,
I think that sounds pretty good.
That's not a ton of overhead.
Yeah. So. And I feel like I feel like at least for us, we found kind of a sweet spot with the little team that we have as of now, where I feel like you kind of get in a groove and you understand your numbers a lot more. And I feel like as you understand those numbers, you understand your marketing, what you need to be doing to get deals, you can then grow exponentially with that knowledge and just delegating to everybody within your team.
Sure. And I mean, there's another part that I've done more than I ever have in the last, I don't know, probably year or so. I've done more JV deals than I ever have before too. You know, like we've done deals together, and for the most part, they all work out pretty nicely. And so I think having that, little pocketbook of other investors that you can go to, that you can partner up on deals with, just to make things flow a little bit smoother. You know, you have a handful of those, and I think you got yourself a pretty good team.
Yeah. If you, after this question, maybe we jump into a handful of deals, like let's just take a start to finish on maybe like your best one or a really good one that was memorable for you, and maybe what you learned through that process, and then maybe a bad one, and like what went wrong, what would you have done different? But first, if you had to go back, I guess, or if someone was to ask you for a piece of advice, someone's just getting started, they're listening to this, they want to do their first wholesale, they want to get into real estate. What's maybe a piece of advice that you would leave with them? Maybe something that you would do differently.
Something that I would do differently is start handing stuff off sooner.
Yep.
Because I'm back to square one right now. Whereas, a year and a half ago, I had a team that it was easy to just throw stuff off to them and hopefully it got done. I would focus. Well, if I was someone that was just starting out, I would make sure that you're doing like 1 to 2 deals a month. You understand, the ins and outs of how roughly the title company works. You obviously have some reliable buyers that you can, move these deals to. And I think that's one other thing that like is kind of misunderstood in the industry is people are always talking about like, oh, I have this massive buyers list, of thousands and thousands of investors, where dude, I don't have a buyer's list. I mean, I do, but I really don't utilize it. Like I have a handful of people in each market that I'll send my deals to. And if they want them, great, because that saves me a ton of time, because I'm not having to deal with a bunch of walkthroughs. I'm not having to deal with, managing 30 buyers that want to go see this house. So for the most part, like I send these deals to the people that I've done deals with in the past, and we're able to move them super easily. So I would say like focus on relationships with buyers. Like I think that's super critical. Don't get so caught up in I have to have, 1,000 buyers to move a deal or anything like that. And then just going back to, you can't treat it as a side hustle. Like if you're wanting to do this, figure out why you want to do it. Like, why are you getting into real estate? And maybe it's not even real estate. Like if you're just wanting to start a business in general, make sure you have, the reason why you want to start doing that.
No, that's good advice, because I feel like it's all relationship based, especially when you're working with buyers. And something I've always said is, you can have, thousands of buyers, and we do, but there's only one buyer at the end of the day, right? Yeah. Only one person can buy the deal.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing is like, there's been times where even my buyers now, they need to buy the price at X amount, and, I may be losing a few $1,000 on the assignment fee, but in the end, it's always better to just make sure that they're still buying from you, kind of keep them happy, than trying to get too greedy over deals.
For sure. Both ways have their pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Like I know some previous people that we had kind of looked up to were like, you send out every deal no matter what. Like there's no, instead of just reaching out to some people individually. But I think on a circumstantial base, it's totally fine. Like there's been times where we send out a deal asking $200,000 for a house, and we're like, oh, that's like, I don't even know if we'll get that. And someone's like, yeah, I can do 215, 220. Right. You're like, oh, I don't know who you are. I've never sold a deal to you before. Like
to send out for me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like we've done a handful of JV deals where, the person that buys it, they're not even in the same state.
Yeah.
So you just never know.
Totally. So let's jump back to those 2 questions of what has been one of the best deals that you've done. What were some lessons that you learned, and like take us through the, start to finish the process. And then same thing with the worst deal.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had a lot of really good deals and, I wish they'd come around more often. But there was a deal in Logan that I had.
I remember this.
You guys should remember this because I think you guys wanted to buy it.
I remember this.
I sold it to someone else.
It was that cool old one, right?
Yeah, it was like that cool Victorian house.
Oh
yeah.
We were down in St. George. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of our first.
Through and that
no,
I don't.
we
think
never
you guys
walked it. This was our. This was probably our first interaction, or
Probably
one of the
pretty
first.
close. Yeah.
Yeah, this is when we had just started doing more flips and.
Dude, and like this was a deal where like I saw like the numbers on it, and I think I just got so excited that I was like, "No, sorry guys."
I don't blame you, man.
Oh, 100%.
I don't blame you.
No, it was this cool Victorian house up in Logan. And I remember when I talked to the guy, he lived in Bountiful. Like he lived down here forever. That was the house that him and his wife, raised I think, all their kids in. And he bought that house back in like the 50s. And so he's a super old guy. And he met me up at the house, and it was full of just the most random items ever. Like
All those storage houses.
yeah, like there was old like you remember like the old big boxy TVs, handful of those. There was just his wife collected dolls, and
those are the worst.
I hate dolls.
Dude.
Screw that.
You take
man.
me to Disneyland and put me on the Small World ride, like I'm not riding it. I will wait outside. So this house was just full of dolls, and he's like, "This is the price that I want." It was like $115,000. The house was worth probably close to $400,000, and I was like, "Sweet, I think I could make that work."
We can do that.
You're stretching me here, Timmy, but I think I can do it.
Like he wanted to keep certain items in the house, and I was like, "No problem. Like, you give me a list of the things that you want out of the house. I'll take care of it. We'll go put it in a storage unit, and you can do whatever you want with it from there." And I think I actually paid for like the first 6 months of his storage unit for him. So that was cool to do. But like, I just remember going through this guy's house, like he was showing me all these things, and he had all these, I remember he had like a big collection of just random stuff from the Olympics when they were here. And so like that was a really cool deal for me, because that was like the first time, well, not the first time, but one of the times like I really felt like I was helping this dude. Like he lost his wife. I think he had lost a couple kids at this point as well. And I remember I sat on his front, like the front porch of that house for probably an hour and just listened to him tell me stories about his life. Like he got signed by the Dodgers when like out of college, and he went to spring training, and I remember him saying like he went to go slide into third, and I don't know, like his cleats got caught on something and ended up rolling over his leg, busted up his knee, and he got cut the next day. So pro baseball career was over. That's when he moved out here to Utah because he wanted to try to learn how to ski. And so yeah, that was a really cool deal to work. Which actually, I know you guys didn't buy it, but that was like one of the first relationships that I was able to kind of put together with another solid buyer that I worked with for a long time. So, and I moved a handful of deals to them after that, but I don't know. Do you want to know the numbers on it?
Yeah. Take us through what you put it under contract at, and then what you're up to.
Start to finish.
If I remember, like.
And how did you find this deal?
Yeah.
This was a cold call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what list was it? Do you remember?
I'm probably an absentee owner.
Yeah,
he lived in Bountiful, and so anyway, I think it was like $115,000 was what we bought the house or put the house under contract for. And I'm not good with math, but I know I made like 82 grand on it.
It's awesome.
So
That's crazy.
Yeah,
man,
it was
that's cool.
It was a fun payday. Like that's still one of the biggest deals that I've ever done to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one was super cool.
What was like Ethan was mentioning? So when did you put it under contract? When did you close? What was that time frame looking like?
I think it was like 2.5 weeks.
Gotta love it, man.
Yeah.
You gotta love it.
So yeah, and I hired my brothers to go and clean out all the stuff from the house. So like I went up there and just helped them move like I think like a truckload and called it a day. So it was a cool day, like making 82 grand in 2-3 weeks.
Dude.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy,
Love
dude.
it, dude.
Can't
How no, go ahead.
You can't complain about that.
No, absolutely not. How long had you been wholesaling before you got this deal? Because I feel like a lot of people here,
I was probably just shy of a year.
you know, and
It was probably just shy of a year.
yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like
That's early.
yeah, it wasn't a crazy amount of time.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing. Like you could make 80 grand on a deal, you can make 100 grand on a deal, but I've also had those where I've made like 2 grand. So
Talking about that, let's dive into your worst
like,
deals.
And the thing that's stupid is like the deals that you do end up doing really well on.
Yep.
They're the ones that's just like
They're
sweet,
so easy.
so easy. Like it's smooth
weird.
transition. And then you get the ones that are just a living hell to deal with. It's like, sweet, I'm doing this to make 2 grand,
Brutal.
you know? And like, you're still helping the homeowner out, which
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do. Like
100%.
that's the thing is in this industry, ultimately you have to remember, like you're there to solve a problem for someone
Yeah.
and to not get greedy about it when a deal's maybe not going your way. And it's like one of my main markets is Idaho, which doesn't sound amazing. I mean, it's Idaho, you know? But I remember there was this deal in Pocatello, Idaho, where, and this is one that I probably had this lady in my follow-up for 6 to 8 months. So it's one that I'd been working on for a while. And in the beginning we set a price. I can't remember what it was, but it was probably around 150 grand. And with this one, I had the buyer lined up for it.
Yeah.
And there was just some title issues that popped up. There was an ex-husband that got involved. And I like, when we first put the house under contract, I just thought, we both just thought that she was on title. And it turns out her ex-husband was on there. We had to find him. He lived in Boise, so the other end of the state. And he was just like, I'm not selling this house. Not selling the house. And I think I had a buyer lined up. My assignment fee was probably like 15 grand at that point. And from there, like it just spiraled out of control. And I finally got the husband and the wife or the ex-husband and wife to finally come to terms. And I remember I met them at the house, and I'm not kidding you. I thought that one of them was going to kill the other. Like they did not want to be in the same room together. I was like, this is so stupid. Like I drove 2 hours to maybe get the deal done.
Yeah.
And we ended up signing it, closing it a few weeks after that. But yeah, I think it was like $2,300.
Yeah.
You know, and like that one took up a ton of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the follow up on that deal exceeded probably probably 10 times what I had to do on the deal that we just talked about before. Yeah. So yeah, like not every deal is going to be, you know, this insane deal. Like on all my deals right now, like I shoot to make a minimum of 15,000. Like that's kind of my threshold of like, I don't want to make less than that. Obviously, you know, if the deal's there, I'll do it, but that's kind of where I try to stay. But yeah, man, in the end, like you're there to help people. So, you know, whether you make 80 grand or whether you make 2, I mean, as long as you're coming from, you know, a place of service to that person, I think it'll all work out in the end. And
for sure.
So, yeah.
And I've seen that, I think, where, you know, there's been deals where we've worked for 6 months, just busting our butts, and we've made like 5 grand.
Yeah.
Or there's deals where,
dude, I have one right now in Idaho that like, it's been 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, we're getting close, but then I look to see what we're going to make and it's like 10 grand. It's like,
yeah,
sweet. You know, I'll take it, but that's another thing that I think a lot of people don't consider is like, you are going to have to follow up with these people. Like it's not, I'm going to call this person one day and in 2 weeks I'm going to cash a check. Like
totally.
That rarely happens, you know?
It does happen.
It does happen. I've had it happen plenty of times, but like you have to treat this going back to, you have to treat it as a business, not just, I'm going to do this when I can. Like there's still days where, you know, I'm following up with people that I've been touching base with for the last year.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, are you ready?
Sure.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah. That's something you've said multiple times. It took you 4.5 months to get your first deal. And then it took you a few months after that to get your second deal. And then just that right there has probably stopped 90+% of the people
100%.
trying to even.
I bet it's more than that.
Probably more than that for sure. Trying to even get into this market where, like, you know, I've tried to maybe do some one-off things for a little bit or a couple months or a few months or a month or like literally or like 2 weeks. And I'm just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing it, you know, whatever. But I think that, it just goes to show like your excuse me, your persistency in follow-up has obviously attributed to a lot of your success, which is great. And that everyone should note that it's not these one-off phone calls.
It's not easy. Like
for sure.
The business is simple.
The business is
easy.
simple, but don't get the wrong idea. Like you are going to put time into this. You're going to have to learn a lot. You're going to have to go through a lot of ups and downs before anything clicks. You know, whether it's picking up the phone for the first, like I'm sure everybody remembers the first time they picked up the phone to dial a for sale by owner.
Oh yeah.
You know
exactly where I was sitting.
I remember where I was sitting. I was sitting in my office in our little townhouse, and I pulled up KSL, and you know, I just typed in for sale by owners. I was like, "Hey, do you want to sell your house?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, it's listed." Oh yeah.
You're like, but cash.
That's probably how it went. So yeah, there's just, you gotta be. It goes back to the commitment thing.
Let's towards the end of the show, there's a few questions we like to ask. One of the questions is, what are your top 3? They can be business books, you know, whether they're related to real estate or not. What are 3 of those for you?
I read a lot. Like I actually block out 2 times every day to read. And probably number 1 book that I've ever read is The Power of One More by Ed Milet. I don't know if either of you guys read that one.
Heard of it. I haven't read it though.
Best book I've ever read. So there's that one. One that I recently read was 10X is Easier Than 2X. That's probably a close second. And that's actually the book that has really kind of motivated me again to get this business to where I want it to go. So that's a really good one. And then number 3, I'm not going to throw the Rich Dad Poor Dad book because I feel like
that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like every book or every podcast, it's like, oh yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's probably another one. I try to read that book every year at least.
That's great.
So yeah,
that's great.
I mean, there's tons of them. There's one I'm reading right now by Patrick Bet-David.
I've keep seeing
something about enemies.
Your next 5 moves?
No,
that he did write that one though.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Something over your enemies. I don't.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Justin, it was great having you here. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and share your story.
Yeah.
It's super inspiring to see what you've done. Just going from broke to where you are now, but still continually, growing and achieving. Again, none of us are near where we want to be or kind of what the end goal is, but at least you keep trying. You don't fail if you keep trying, you know?
Yeah. Can't fail if you don't
stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to keep going.
Where can people reach you at? What are your socials?
Instagram's probably the best. So just _ Justin Arrington.
Okay.
So just search that and look for the one with the beard. That's me.
Last note, tell us about your podcast and then your hat that you're wearing.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I actually started a podcast last year. So January of 2023. It was called Awaken the Power Within. And I'm super big on like the personal development and just always trying to better yourself. And that's really what that podcast is based around. And I shut that show down. I think it was September of last year, just because I didn't feel like it was going in the direction that I wanted it to. I wanted to kind of rebrand it, whatever you want to call it. So I've taken from then till now to really restructure what I want it to be. And so we're rebranding it right now still. It's going to be the Freedom First podcast. That's the F on my hat. So the Freedom First brand is what I'm building on the side.
Yeah.
not a side hustle, but like this is more so a project that I want to really start building. So the new podcast that we're going to be dropping is the Freedom First podcast. I wanted to get that out by Q2 this year, so I'm hoping in the next
couple months,
30 to 60 days, we'll be ready to get that launched. And that one's going to be more towards, so I live my life by 4 pillars is what I call them. So it's faith, family, fitness, and finance. And so that's more so what that podcast is going to be targeting, as well as helping new entrepreneurs build their own businesses. So that's one thing that I really do enjoy doing. So that's more so along the lines of the Freedom First brand. And obviously we're going to be releasing some apparel and stuff like that along with it. So it's been a cool project that I've kind of been working on over the last few months.
That's awesome.
So that's sweet, man.
Yeah.
No, if you're into anything when it comes to personal development, I feel like Justin's always been someone that we've looked up to, within it, because
it's one
I
of my
feel
favorite
like,
things, man.
Yeah, no, and it is. I for us too, because it's the one thing that you really have control over is who you are and how you perceive the world. And
dude, I could do a 2-3 hour show.
Oh yeah.
Just based off of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
So,
no. Well, it's been good to have you here, man.
Yeah,
and we appreciate
having
it. Me. Yeah. Give us a follow. Follow us on all socials. I'm sure we'll just have it just down below.
Yep. And if you're wanting to get started on your real estate journey, be sure to check out wholesaling-mastery.com. That is our wholesaling course, so you can get started and do $82,000 deals like Justin.
Or $23,000 or $2,300 deal.
300, yeah.
Yeah. Cool,
All right.
man.
Thanks, guys.